Welcome to another episode of Words from the Scribe, everybody. And today I've got somebody I've actually been wanting to talk to for a while. I'll say up front, she's a client of mine and has been for a while, but her story's a good one. People responded quite well to when she shared the story of how she got started and all that sort of thing. So allow me to introduce you all to Sally Gillman from Shields Gillman Real Estate. Good to have you with us today, Sally.
Thanks, Ben. It's good to be here.
Yeah. Now, don't mind me, guys. I'm just coming off, just coming off a bit of a cold as we go into winter, but we'll manage. So just for the sake of the people at home, Sally, obviously the name real estate's in the company, but what particular area of real estate do you provide? Like, what particular area of real estate do you cover?
Yep. So we specialise in residential property management, and we do sales as well. But our philosophy behind the sales is that we provide an excellent service for property management, and so once people get to know us and see how good the service is, that they'll be more than wanting to trust us with the sale of their property. But we're not like a point of difference from other agents is we don't go around trying to push people into sales. We look after their properties, and then once they get to know us and they want to get a good result and they want to trust the agent that they're dealing with, then they'll use Shields Gillman.
Sure. No, that's a good way of looking at it, sort of get them to have an ongoing relationship with you in regards to property management, and they see what you can do, and then when it comes time for them to list their home on the market, it makes more sense that they're going to come to you.
That's right.
All right, now, is there a particular area that you service there, Sally?
So, yeah, there is. We started up 26, I can't keep track. Back in 1995, we started up in Wallara, the eastern suburbs of Sydney, and we did pretty much from Watsons Bay through to Maroubra of the eastern suburbs, and built the property management, the rent roll up there, and also did sales from all those areas, Bondi and Paddington and so forth. But then when I moved to the northern beaches of Sydney, to Forestville to live when the property market got too hot and too expensive, and I wanted a bigger home and I couldn't afford the eastern suburbs prices, and that was back in 2002. And so then driving from the eastern suburbs to the northern beaches, or the northern beaches to the eastern suburbs, got a bit much, and by 2014 we relocated the business, and so I've relocated the business now to Forestville, so I actually specialise in property management in Sydney's northern beaches. So that's, and more specifically, the forest area of Sydney. So that's Belrose, Davidson, Killarney Heights, Frenchs Forest, and Forestville. They're our main suburbs now.
Okay, great. Now, I remember an older article you were talking about a flat that you sold, I think, around Bondi or something back in the mid-90s, and just the prices that it was going for then. I mean, it's just crazy the way, just looking at that, I remember thinking, far out, imagine trying to get somewhere for that kind of price these days. That's
right. Our first sale, my first sale as Shields Gillman Real Estate. So I started the company myself, and it was Sally A. Shields Real Estate to reflect my name, and that was the first sale that we did. It was in Campbell Parade in Bondi Beach, just overlooking the beach, and I think it was sold for 260 or 280,000. But it's a unit now that would be selling for, I don't know, $2 million at least. But I'm not sure how much it is. It's ridiculous how the market has just gone so crazy. It's fantastic on one hand, but then it's terrible for the first home buyers or those who haven't gotten into the market. Kids my age, 20, it's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I know with my own family, we rented, I don't know if I've told you this story before, but we were renting around the North Shore up to the early 90s. We had a place at Camaray, beautiful, like old dual occupancy place. Perfect location, everything 10 minutes from the city, and I started school there and everything. But even back in about 92 when we moved, the the cost of the rental was just going up too much, and we could see that we could buy a brand new house up here on the Central Coast in Carryong, which, I mean, it's very different now. I've got a friend who lives there, but 27 years ago now, Carryong was basically, just a few older houses and this brand new estate, just, maybe one or two streets and then just bushland all around. And I know we bought that house brand new for 132 grand back in 92, but
good thinking on your parents' behalf, because that's absolutely, it's a fantastic area now, and it's not considered far away.
It isn't, no. I mean, I know in my parents' position, especially in my mother's position, she was still working at Chatswood, and it made, it's right there on the freeway exit, that sort of thing. But I know from a friend of mine who lives there, moved there a couple of years ago, but there's still a problem. You have to go all the way down that hill to West Gosford to do the shopping, and there's just there's not a central hub there. There's not really a fast food outlet. Yeah, it's just ridiculous in terms of the lack of that kind of infrastructure there. And I know for a kid, Sally, it was a big culture shock. I mean, we moved. It was right on my 7th birthday that we moved, actually, and it was a big culture shock, having spent all of my life, all 7 years of my life up to that point, living in sort of the North Shore of Sydney and quite close to the city and that urban environment and a fairly multicultural environment at that, to moving up to Carryong with bushland all around and going to a sleepy suburban public school where it was mostly white kids there, and it probably took me about a good 5 years to actually really start to feel at home on the coast there, but I can
imagine, but now that area is in such high demand. I'm surprised it hasn't got better infrastructure. That's crazy.
Yeah, well, look, I know that they were planning to put I think it was Woolworths or somebody like that was planning to put a supermarket there with a bunch of shops over the Mount Penang side where the correction centre was, that sort of thing, and that got turned down. So it's just stupid in regards to that thinking. But I look at it as a blessing. I mean, I really do love it up here on the Central Coast. You're close enough to the city and you've got the beaches and that. I know my parents were back in the day when they were thinking of moving. They were toying with the idea of moving to the Blue Mountains. So that's a blessing in disguise. I mean, you could
have had cold, but you went to warm at least.
Exactly, yeah. Could have had cold and no beaches. So I mean, that's a blessing in disguise. Now,
that's right.
Anyway, moving on, Sally. You talked about getting into real estate, that sort of thing. But what got you interested in that? What got you interested in going into real estate back whenever that was? Take us through that.
Good question.
Yeah.
So I started in real estate in '89. I got my first job in '89, but I was at uni and I wanted to be a journalist, and that was in '86, 87, and then I dropped out because I wasn't enjoying the course. It was at Macquarie Uni, and got a job at David Jones in the toy department over Christmas, and I was there not sure what I was going to do, and I had a bad car accident, and I ended up having a year off of rehab and 4 operations, and while that was going on, my mum was working. My mum had been a housewife for the 20 years prior, and she decided to get into real estate. And I saw her enjoying it, and Sydney was going through a bit of a boom, it actually went through a boom and then it crashed. But anyway, and so I just decided that might be a job I could get. So I just got a job, and I went to TAFE and started doing it. I suppose the answer is what got me into real estate was I thought I could make a quick buck, and I thought you didn't have to be very very smart, and you just had to have the gift of the gab. And I thought that I checked all those boxes, so I went for it. Yeah.
Okay. So it was just sort of going in and thinking, hey, this is going to be, this is a way to make a quick buck. And I guess at that point of time, sort of 88, 89, I know about 10 years ago, I worked at a bottle shop that was owned by the real estate agency. The guy that managed the real estate agency a couple of doors up, and he came in for a chat once, and I said, back in 89, that would have been a difficult time with interest rates at 17%. And he actually said to me, he said 1988 was a more difficult year than 89 in terms of selling property, that sort of thing.
So 1987 was was actually, 1986 had a massive boom, and then 1987 had a crash.
That's right.
And it was a terrible crash. And so then, yeah, he's right. So then, and then it started picking up again. But lots of people who'd bought in 87 had then, or 87, 88. I'm being a bit cloudy with my. Oops, sorry, that's the dog.
That's all right.
Anyway, I'm having a bit of a blank with the exact years, but there was a time when it was really, really tough, and then people had bought in the boom thinking that they should buy real estate, and then it had crashed, and we were watching them actually in 1989 selling properties for less than they'd bought them the year before, which was then unheard of. It's been unheard of since until now, and we're actually in that same cycle now where people are buying properties in 2017 and 2018 for a lot of money, and now come the end of 2018, September, October, November, and now they're actually selling. If you had to sell right now after buying something in September 2017, you'd be hurting. You would have lost. You'd be losing quite a bit of money. So hopefully that people aren't selling. They don't need to sell. But if people did, it's a repeat of the market from the 80s at this point.
Yeah, sure. Now, out of interest, the DJs that you were working at, whereabouts was that?
It was Bondi Junction.
Okay. I was going to say, if it had been the one at Chatswood, our paths may have crossed in some unusual way, but I was very little and would have had curly hair, unlike what I've got now. So.
Well, I don't know if you remember, but there was a Brash's record store in 1986, or maybe, how old, like when were you born? You were probably born in 85, were you?
That's right, yeah. Bang on the money.
Yeah, so you wouldn't remember it, but in 86 I had my first job, and that was at a record store called Brash's, and that was in Chatswood Chase.
Yeah,
and that's now the Apple store.
Right.
Yeah, you might have popped in there, but I wasn't there for very long because retail wasn't really my thing.
Yeah, I know. As far back as I remember, Chatswood's always been, it even back in the 80s, very strong Asian presence, Korean, Chinese population, the high-rise buildings and that. In some ways, it hasn't really changed at all in over 30 years, but then in other regards, especially, like, I remember the old railway station and, like, that old mall and everything, that has changed so much, like.
Yeah, no, well, the Westfield's fantastic, and I can't think what they call it, but
Chatswood Chase?
Chatswood Chase is great. They renovated that, but there's a big music hall place where there's you can go and see entertainers. It's like a mini entertainment centre, and that's fantastic. But you know what? There's just so many more people in the area, and there's so many high rises.
Yeah.
And so that's what's changed. It's just that it used to be the same sort of mix, but now it's just really, really a packed little city.
Yeah. It's funny actually. Like the flat that I lived in, we moved out midway through 1990, but the flat that we lived in on Sutherland Road is still there. It's this old red brick place, and I had a friend who had an interview at the car dealership a couple of blocks up, and so I was with him and I had some time to kill, so I walked down and I actually took a look at the old flat. I could walk right through to the backyard actually, and that had barely changed in the 28 or 29 years since I'd last stepped through there. But it's just funny, like I said, there's so much that's changed in that suburb, that area, but then there's a lot that it's pretty much just the same as it was 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It is like that. There's a whole lot of different areas or different buildings. You can go into some original buildings and you can go into some brand new ones.
Yeah.
But it's just I like Chatswood very much. I think it's got a good feel, and the people there, it is a little bit packed a lot of the time, but everybody seems to just be quite reasonable. I like it. Everyone's quite friendly, and they might keep to themselves, but they don't. But no one's kind of, hopefully saying this, and I haven't had any bad incidents. Everyone's always pretty smiley and happy there.
Yeah, it's not really people yelling at each other in the streets in high decibels in the earlier hours or gunshots at night. So
that's exactly what I mean. That's right. Everybody's pretty well well balanced and leaves each other alone.
That's right. But they're not quite at the level where the shopping mall has carpet like St Ives. So yeah.
No, thank God for that. Really, I don't like shopping malls with carpet.
Yeah. So I mean, that essentially this is your 30th year or 31st year, depending on how you count it.
Yeah, true. I think I've been counting it as my 30th.
Your 30th. Yeah, that's a nice way of rounding it off. So, in that time, if there's one or maybe even two standout lessons that you've learnt along the way on a professional and maybe even on a personal level as well, Sally, what would they be for you?
Gee, that's a tough one. Okay.
Yeah, it is.
So what have I learned? I suppose, well, when I got into the business, all I was really doing was the place that I'd worked for had sold, and so I could either go where they were selling me to or start up my own. And so when I started up my own, I just thought I could just be a property manager, and it would all be pretty easy. But I didn't realise that there's so many. I mean, there's obviously taxes and things, but even it was before GST, so now it's even more heavily red taped with the obligations. You know, you put on a staff member, you have to go through a whole checklist. I guess I was just naive. That's what I'm going to say. And so I've learned that the more staff that you have equals the more problems that you have.
Yeah.
And that's not to say I haven't had some fantastic staff, and I've had some absolutely awesome staff over the years. But the more staff you have, then you delegate, and when you delegate, things aren't done quite to the same level that you might want, and it creates more problems, even though it's supposed to free you up. So I guess they're my two lessons: naivety and just staff issues that I don't know how you resolve those, because everybody who owns a small business who has staff, and I discuss it with them, say the same thing. I guess McDonald's has done it very well, and there's plenty of big businesses that have done it very well, but I just don't know how to replicate and clone myself to have consistency through the business.
That's it. You do touch on a common theme there, Sally, was regarding business owners or people in management positions. I actually worked for McDonald's for a short while when I was about 15, 8 or 9 months there. But one thing they do well, they train people up well. Like effectively, I don't know if this is still the case, but if you've worked for McDonald's, you can pretty much automatically get an interview with Qantas in a position, because they know the kind of training that's there, and that's why it's so important for a business, especially if you're taking on staff. I think it's so important to be very clean cut about the training procedures and train people up in a particular system. You need to be able to almost create another brain that they can operate off, so that you don't have to be using your brain when they're working. And the more people you deal with, I mean, it's inevitable. The more people that you have in your life, the more problems you have to deal with. It doesn't matter whether they're good people or not. It's just people have problems. People have different issues going on. People have different ways of learning things.
Just different ways of doing things. And
That's
there's
right.
nothing wrong with that. It's just, that's exactly right. I've written quite a few manuals over my time in business to teach people the basics. Like when you walk in the front door, you have to turn the lights on.
Yeah.
Because if you don't tell people things like that, they just might not do it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make them a bad person, but it just sometimes you come in you'll come in from an appointment at 11 o'clock in the morning and they're sitting in darkness. What's going on here?
Yeah, exactly. So these manuals, have they just been just for real estate, or have you thought about selling these or listing those online?
That's a good question. I have never thought about it. I've got them and they've just been for real estate. So they haven't been very formal. They've been probably, 20 pages of, good morning, congratulations, thanks for coming to work with us.
Yeah.
And this is how we start. Lights on, 8:30 a.m. lights on, open this door, close that door, just basic stuff, and then they just go through the tasks so that people, I have found that systems are the only way to get people to do the tasks that you want when you want. Otherwise, if you just say to somebody, these are your jobs, and they come to work and they have to think about it, I'm not saying all people, I'm just generalising, but I mean it's not all people. But if you give them their 8 specific tasks for the day, and tell them when to do it, I actually think that mostly people prefer that, because then they're like, okay, I have to do this. That it takes the thinking out of the job.
Yeah.
But that's good for office workers in my office. So if you're the receptionist, or you're the sales secretary, or the property management secretary, but if you have to go out and meet with clients, that's pretty much something, and tell them how much their house is worth, and go on like that. That's pretty much something that they have to either they have or they don't have. It's sort of like it's like a skill that they were born with or they weren't born with. That's what I think.
Yeah. No, well, there might be an idea for you there, Sally, a training manual you could list on Amazon or something like that, and you could apply it more generally. So, yeah, there's a thought. Now,
I could always do with some more cash. That's
yeah, cool. Exactly. Couldn't we all? Now, I suppose to somebody starting a business, generally speaking, whether it be an agency or whether it be a shop or anything like that, what would be your best advice to them? Like, what do you think is the biggest thing for them to keep in mind if they're going to go down that route?
Make a budget and track your budget every month. So maybe get yourself an accountant or a good person to bounce ideas off. But definitely the main thing is make a budget, because what I have found over the years is that if you have some cash, the cash flow comes in, it's all very well to get excited. There's lots of businesses out there that make money off selling us products that we don't really need.
Yeah, that's right.
And you need to write down what you need, and you need to stick to it. So it's all very well for some salesman to come in and tell you that you need an updated website when your website's good enough, or whatever it happens to be. That's kind of a bad example, but all these people are trying, or an advertisement in some little magazine that nobody reads, and because you've got the spare cash, you think, oh yeah, that's a good idea, I'll go for it.
Yeah, splurge.
But you need to keep an eye on that, because the expenses just balloon when you least expect it. That's what I've found.
Yeah. No, that's actually sound advice. Yeah, just stay within your budget and don't splurge. And if you're going to invest in something, do some research and see that it's actually viable in this day and age.
That's right.
So, in short, Sally, why should people give Shields Gillman Real Estate a call? Why should they come to you? Well,
it's owner-operated, and I've got 30 years' experience in the industry. So they're the first two things are that you're not dealing with, and there's nothing wrong with dealing with an 18-year-old straight out of school, but they can't make decisions. They have to follow certain stringent rules that are being given by their boss.
That's right.
So we're flexible. We can tailor-make a package for the person that comes to us. And with the experience, I can tell them the honest truth about how things are, and I've weathered it. I'm not a real estate agent that's just flown in for a couple of years and then the market's got too bad, so I've dropped out.
Yeah.
Or the market's fantastic, so I'm flying around at the moment because it all looks good, but I won't be here next week because the bottom's fallen out of the market.
Yeah.
So that's it. But the other thing is that we really care. I really care about the person's property. I'm flexible with how I treat owners, tenants, vendors, and buyers alike. So if I'm talking straight, but I'm also being flexible. I can negotiate and I can keep the feel good going, where a lot of agents can have upset a buyer or upset a client, and so the client walks. Whereas we'll do anything to maintain a relationship. It's very hard to get a client in the door. So once you have a client in the door, you've got to maintain the relationship. And I think that today's society, everybody's trying to push the dollar down, which is fair enough. They want to get the best value, and I have no problem with that. But at the same time, some businesses are arcing up and arguing against it. The businesses have to be flexible and have to work for the client so that the client knows that they're getting great value for money. So even if they were paying slightly more through our office, they'll walk out thinking, well, you know what, that extra $4 a week that I pay for property management here as opposed to down the street is worth it because I'm getting great service. And when they ring, they're getting answered by me. They're not getting answered by a push 1 or a push 2 computer. It's all about real service, and that's what I think our point of difference is. Absolutely,
and as evidenced by some of the testimonials that you have from people who've been with you for over a decade and had you managing their properties. Absolutely, yeah. And I think you make a good point there about value as well. I mean, I know in my industry, I speak to a lot of graphic designers too, Sally, and you get people who are just looking for somebody to do logos for them on Fiverr. I had this discussion with a good friend of mine named Samau. He's a graphic designer down in Melbourne, but we had this discussion about people who we've talked about, people who just want stuff done on the cheap, and you can spend ages looking for somebody that's going to write content for you, write copy for you, and, get a whole bunch of people that will do the job for cheap, but they're not going to do it well. And yeah, value is so important. It's still so important to provide good value for people and give them reason to stay with you, to keep on coming back. Because as you said, in your industry, it's not like you're running a takeaway fish and chip store or something where if people don't like the batch, they're just not going to come back. Like, you're dealing with bigger amounts of money here, and you're dealing with more serious investments than just, what are you going to have for lunch? Like, you're dealing with, people's investments here.
Absolutely. Well, I would say that that 40% of my client base have been with me for over 15 years.
Yeah.
And the clients that we have that are new are actually raving fans, and most of them own multiple properties, or they have told relatives or friends to come to us. So our biggest growth, I don't actually apart from writing me some good articles and things like that, I don't actually do a lot of marketing. I used to, but now I just rely on referrals, and referrals are 80% of our business, and it's because of that. It's because you treat the clients and their product so well.
That's it. Yeah, the joy of good referrals. You're absolutely right there, Sally. And when people see that you can do the job for them, they're going to tell other people about that. And that's your foot in the door right there. It's fantastic when it works out like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for people watching at home, I will include the contact details for Shields Gillman there if you're somebody with, say, a rental property or an investment property and you want to give Sally a call. So I'll make that very easy for you. I'll include those links there so you can contact them.
And I guess I'll just say this while we're talking.
Sure.
Whilst I am in the forest area and I do the eastern suburbs, I pretty much will go anywhere in the metropolitan Sydney region to do a management, because these days property management is all done pretty much on the internet, apart from the inspections. And I don't mind driving for the inspections, the routine inspections, and the inspections to show them the property to lease it.
Sure.
And once it's leased, they pay rent through a bank. We don't have to actually have the old office door open round the corner. So if there is anybody watching who would like to take advantage of the great service that we provide, I'm only too happy to talk to them wherever they are.
Fantastic. Yeah, make note of that, people. So if you're anywhere in Sydney, Sally can help you, and I will provide those details, like I said. Now, just to wrap things up here, Sally, are there any shout-outs that you want to give in particular to anybody you work with or anybody you've worked with over the years, anything like that?
Well, that's funny that you say that. So I do. There was a young guy who worked for me from the age of 17 until he was 20, I think. His name is Michael Murray, and he's got his own real estate agency, so I should be careful what I say because he's competition, although he's in Rose Bay and we're over here. Anyway, that's just an example of a young guy who's just been really dedicated and provides a fantastic service. And I now learn from him. He does absolutely fantastic social media grabs and all sorts of, I don't know, he does videos and things of his, updates people. Every day I'm learning from him. So I'm going to say that Michael Murray Property is a very good, is somebody who I'm very impressed with, who I'm learning from. And it's funny how it goes around because he learned from me. So, that's pretty much it. And then, there's, everybody, there's so many real estate agents, but John McGrath is a fantastic real estate agent and he's a great person and I very much respect him. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, we've just clicked over the half-hour mark, Sally, so well done there. There's plenty more that we could have talked about, but, time is always of the essence. I want to thank you for taking the time out to speak with us today, Sally. And like I said, people, I will include the details there for Shields Gillman, so get in contact with them. But yeah, just thanks for that, Sally, and your dogs as well deserve a pat on the head. They've been very well behaved.
They were pretty quiet, weren't they?
They were.
They're sleeping in the sun, Ben, so that's all good.
Enjoying the winter sunshine. It's been nice to have a bit of a change from the rain we've had the last couple of days.
Absolutely. Oh, well, thanks, Ben.
No problem, Sally, and I'll talk to you again in the near future.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye. So there you go, guys. There's somebody with decades of experience in what they do in real estate. And yeah, it's a big investment, isn't it? Whether you're looking to buy a property or whether you're looking to invest in a property. So if you're going to do that, you want to make sure that your investment's in good hands. And yeah, like I said at the start of the video, I have worked with Sally over the last couple of years as a client, but I really wanted her to give her the opportunity to share a story with you guys. Because when we wrote about her background and how she got started and those early days over in the eastern suburbs, it was really well received by people on social media. So look, I hope you enjoyed that, guys. And yeah, credit to her dogs for keeping quiet for us. But let me know what you think, guys. Just feel free to leave a comment. You can always provide a link there too if you want to Sally's site, and I will provide that information for you as well as my own details. But yeah, that's a wrap on another episode of Words from the Scribe. So until next time, I'll catch you later.